And we're going to stay with this investor theme now and welcome our corporate strategic investor panelists to come upstage. And that is Cindy Chow, Executive Director of the Alibaba Entrepreneurs Fund, Grace Thea, Senior Director, Corporate Strategy and Business Development, Tencent, and Jameson Bonsor, Senior Director, Fosun Capital. And moderating is Lulu Chen from Bloomberg. So, Lulu, you can take the seat here, and I think it's great that we have Tencent, Alibaba, and Fosun all on one panel. Where else would you see this? Thank you.
Let me just say I've been to many panels before, and this is a very rare phenomenon. I have Cindy sitting closest to me, and I guess I'll start with you.
Sure.
Your fund, Alibaba Young Entrepreneurs Fund, started in November. Can you tell us what you've been up to so far and how your investment strategy actually works?
Okay, before we go into the investment strategies, just let me do some advertisement on the fund. So as you mentioned, we started in November last year. So the key thing that we want to do is to give more opportunities for people or entrepreneurs in Hong Kong. So how we do it, basically we provide equity funding for cases or business that we think will be promising or we believe in the business proposition. And the other thing is we provide also mentorship or support to the business, trying to help them grow after they have accepted our investment.
When you invest, what is the usual amount that you put in and the equity that you require?
So we run this fund very commercially. As you know, we appointed Gobi partners, so Chibo is one of the key person that we work closely with. So we do it very commercially. So for companies that approach us or that we get through the website's application, we open that website and we allow public to submit their proposals directly to us. So we go through all the proposals, screen them, and then Gobi will approach the entrepreneurs to really understand the business. And of course, we also go through due diligence and the very usual process.
I'm just curious, so these startups, when you invest, do they necessarily have to be part of the Alibaba ecosystem as you see something that they could work with Alibaba, let it be entertainment, e-commerce, sports, or actually you can just do it for the sake of investment?
Right. When we stated very clearly there are two criteria for this fund or for companies when they apply to us, they have to meet two criteria. One is there is a nexus to Hong Kong. This echo back to what we try to achieve, really to reignite the entrepreneurship spirit in Hong Kong. So companies either have to have founders from Hong Kong or they have to have a base in Hong Kong. So we can have companies that are founded by expatriates, but they have a meaningful base here in Hong Kong. And the other criteria is for them to have can become a participant of the Alibaba ecosystem. The reason why we want this is not to limit the scope for the business that we can invest in, but rather we want to use our own resources to help them. So when I first started, I say that we try to help these companies by giving equity and also mentorship. When I say mentorship, it's more meaning to make use of the Alibaba resources to help them grow, either in China or in other parts of the world. Just you heard about the deal that we recently closed in Southeast Asia. So there is lots of room that we think we can help the investing companies.
James, your fund is very focused on healthcare. Could you tell us usually what stage do you go into the companies, how big your fund is? Give us an introduction, basically.
Fosun Kinzon Capital is part of the Fosun Group. And just so you're aware, obviously the Fosun Group is now a very large investment company, very much originally from much more traditional roots. You know, we have iron ore mines, we have steel milling, we have a lot of real estate and a lot in the healthcare area as well. But Fosun Kinzon Capital was set up about 3 years ago, and the couple of key partners, their background was from CDH Venture back in the day, and also we have a partner in the US too, who was ex-Tencent. Now what we do is we're investing off the Fosun balance sheet, and they've given us $200 million US plus 800 million renminbi. And over the last 3 years, we've invested this now in just over 50 companies, so quite a lot. And particularly of late, we've been quite active in China. Our focus is mainly mainland China. We've done about 7 or 8 deals in the US, and we've done one in Southeast Asia as well, in Indonesia, called Mainspring. Okay, so that's generally the bulk of our portfolio. And just on your specific question, we do, I guess, A round. So we try to be the first institutional investor. We can do a late angel through to an early B in general, but that's at our team level. But for certain deals where there's also synergies with the group, Fosun can invest in later rounds as well.
I see. Are these all very healthcare focused? What's your most successful investment so far?
Actually, our strategy is a bit broader than just healthcare. So it's generally things that are related to mobile internet, so the kind of mobile internet plus. So we've done things in education, travel. We're actually very big in B2B in general. So particularly on our renminbi side, probably half of our deals have been B2B, which is a little bit different in China. We are particularly focused, though, I suppose, in certain bits of digital healthcare and financial services, simply because there are also connections to the Fosun Group as well. Our biggest deal to date is a healthcare deal, and it's the Guahao Wang, which is called WeDoctor, which is the biggest portal in China for doctor registrations. You know, obviously the registrations are free and solve a big problem in China, but then through the portal, a lot of other services can be provided as well.
They have a secondary link on the WeChat app right now. So you actually invested in that deal together with Tencent, right? I'm actually curious, when you invest in, I'm sure all three of you come across each other very frequently. Do you consider each other competitors? Do you consider Tencent a competitor? What is the dynamic really like?
I guess, I mean, we're not part of BAT, right? So, yeah. But it definitely makes sense for a lot of these early stage companies in China to work with BAT, right? And for them to really expand, it can really make sense to work with one of these guys. And I think it just depends on which makes sense more, depending on whether they want traffic or various other things as well. I think our approach is, it is good in the earlier stages to try and not commit to any one of the three, because obviously the three try to absorb some of these companies, right? But I think it makes sense longer down the line. You've got to work with. I mean, there's no way around it. You've got to work with these guys. That's our view, anyway.
So you work with them. I'll check with Grace later after the panel if that's true. Grace, I know you look after Southeast Asia a lot, but it is a very dynamic market. What are some of the opportunities that you see in this market, and how is Tencent capturing the opportunities over there?
Yeah, sure. So my focus at Tencent at this moment is international market strategy and development. Southeast Asia apparently are a high priority market for us overseas. The companies we're looking for out there to work with potential investments are the ones that can either help us to build and scale up our core business in those overseas markets, by providing technology or providing access to local audience, or enabling new business model, or the companies that can help us to branch into adjacent areas. So those are the companies we're looking for in Southeast Asia market. And the market itself is very interesting and attractive. Previous panel have already talked a lot about that market. In our eyes, it's a huge population, very young population. And also the internet penetration, smartphone penetration has been rising. That means more and more people are getting online. on their mobile platform. A lot of them are mobile first and mobile only. So that opened a lot of opportunities for online shopping, digital media, e-commerce, healthcare, you name it. Another thing we see in Southeast Asia market is there's a significant demand and a supply gap. That opens opportunity for startups that can help to unlock the resources or consolidate resources or provide a very efficient way to reach to audience. So it's very interesting market, and the way we look at the market is we want to first to build our own operations in the market and work with local entrepreneurs together to grow the business.
Now, there are a lot of very active funds already existing in that marketplace. So when you go in, what do you provide uniquely, specifically to these startups? How do you convince them to take your money?
So when we approach startups, our angle is not just a financial investment. We bring a lot of corporate resources, the know-hows, so also access to China market. So we have a very unique angle to tackle the local opportunities compared with financial institutions.
I have a question for all three of you. There are a lot of entrepreneurs sitting here today in the audience seats. So when they come and talk to you, what are some of the red flags, the no-nos that you look for, and that basically some of the pitfalls that startups should look for when they go to pitch to investors? We can go down the line, starting from Cindy.
I think when we look at the startups, the team is very important. So we always look at how passionate the team is about what they want to do. Are they really believing in it? So I guess the last thing I want to see a founder to tell me is after the presentation, no matter whether it goes good or not, then they come up and say, oh, by the way, Cindy, I have another plan. Would you have another 5 minutes to listen to another plan? So I will wonder whether you are really passionate about what you are trying to do or trying to pitch us. Yeah.
James?
Actually, probably our top one's about the same as well. If they're not passionate in their own business, I mean, no one's going to be passionate in their business, right? So that's definitely top. But kind of on top of that as well, if they're not ambitious enough, because we want to see things get big as well. I think that's definitely a problem for us. Plus, also connected to this is if they, I suppose, just want to make a little bit of money, just get a round of financing, make a little bit of money, and not really go beyond that. I think they're the bigger things, and then there are all kinds of other things about their character or the way of doing things.
Like
right?
what?
But I think,
give us some examples.
I mean, if someone's not really grounded and practical, you meet people that are very good at talking and marketing and a little bit fake, right? That's, if once you do more work, talk to them a lot, talk to their team, you talk to other people in the market, it kind of, you can see through that fairly quickly, right? But that's something that can be quite obvious and is a problem, okay?
Well, actually, I'd like to flip the questions to what are the common traits I see from successful entrepreneurs. We have talked a lot about the red flags. For the things I see in successful entrepreneurs are, three things. One is they'll have the courage to start a really tough business, to solve a big problem. They have the courage to put themselves in a very unpredictable but exciting path to solve problems. Second of all, they'll have sympathy to really understand their audience, to see how can they solve their issues and problems on a psychological level. And the third one is they'll think globally. They have ambitions to position themselves not just in China market, not just in Thailand or India, but for the global market. After all, the world is flat, so we'd love to see entrepreneurs with a big dream and ambitious.
I see. From the startups point of view, one of the questions that I hear a lot is when they take money from either one of you, what does that mean for the other companies? Will you, their concern is if I take money from one, will the other two block me? Or basically, deprive me of the resources if I didn't take any money at all. How would you address that concern?
Because for this fund, the Entrepreneurs Fund, there is a social impact. So we already said that this is not for profit. The group allocated $1 billion Hong Kong dollars solely for the Hong Kong market. And all the profit will go back to the fund and we'll invest in more startups. So for us, it is a bit easier because we invest into these companies, taking a minority stake. And we believe that the entrepreneurs or the business should, do whatever they think is best for their business. So they may, partner with us. Of course, that we will welcome that. But if they think that partnering with other key competitors in the market will be better for them, we always, we also think that that's okay for them. Because at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is to help them to be successful. And because we believe that with more successful cases in Hong Kong, we have a hero effect. At the same time, we can have more talents in the market to around the markets, and then there will be a effect, an ecosystem here. So this is the mission of our fund. So to answer questions, it's okay even they want to partner with the other competitors.
Do you guys agree?
Totally agree. Just want to add on what she said. I think entrepreneurs should focus their energy on deciding, what's the best for their business, how to grow their business fast. Not worry about taking sides. After all, as an investor, especially when we invest in company, we invest from business angle. We love to see them to be successful. So we will work with them as a partner to grow their business. Taking sides is really not something they should concern.
I think just one final point on this is, obviously, many investors only bring money to the table, but there are a number of investors, including us, that also can bring resources to the table. So, not necessarily about Tencent or Baidu or something like that, but other investors also have resources. And I guess you have to, as an entrepreneur, think about what they can bring and can they really bring it and is it really valuable and all these kinds of things as well. And these can come from multiple investors. And we're happy to see other strategic investors in there as well if they can really help with something. Yeah, because we all benefit if the company does well, right?
When people talk about startups here in Hong Kong, you basically have to compare them with the zillion of startups on the mainland and then also the fastest growing market in Southeast Asia. So what would you like to see more from the startups here in Hong Kong, and also how can they increase their competitive advantage?
Yeah, I think first of all, when I started launching the fund back in November, I thought that there are not a lot of startups, or the startup scene is pretty quiet in Hong Kong. But unlike what I expected, it's quite robust. Just 2 or 3 years ago, there were only 2 co-work spaces here in Hong Kong, but last year we have over 40 already. So it's actually quite an active ecosystem or community here in Hong Kong. But I guess for startups, I think entrepreneurs should look beyond the Hong Kong markets more. Hong Kong can be a very good place for them to test off their ideas. But I think this is it is too small of a market. So, and it is so easy, and it is very easy for Hong Kong to connect to either China or Southeast Asia or the rest of the world, because Hong Kong has always been a connector.
So would you invest in O2O companies, location-based services? Because those companies, it's harder for them to branch out and scale up, right?
Well, I guess at least the entrepreneur has to show to us that there is a opportunity for them to expand outside of the Hong Kong markets, because it's not making a very good business case if you are just concentrating on a market in Hong Kong where we have only about 7 million population, whereas in China you have a much bigger market.
See, and Grace, for you, when you look at Southeast Asia, do you also see a link back to mainland as essential?
Not necessarily. I mean, there are 10 plus countries in Southeast Asia, and every country have different language and culture and different internet development stage. So it's interesting to see, the different business models has been evolving differently in different countries at different timing. Not necessarily have to copy, what China did in the past or what India did in the past. That's what makes that market so interesting.
I just have one last question, and then I'll let the audience take some questions. We'll take some questions from the audience. A lot of the startups here might want to expand in the mainland. Navigating the policies and political risks is one of the key concerns. Even as a fund, you probably have to deal with this. So, how are you seeing the dynamics here? And when a startup takes money from your fund, how do you convince them? Are you providing them any guidance on that front? No? Sure. You want to take that question, James?
I think when we speak to our entrepreneurs, they're going to want to understand, well, I guess if they're doing really well, they have a lot of choice in who their investors are. If they're kind of not so well connected, you can't always be so choosy about where your money comes from, right? That's kind of a reality. But I think for businesses we really like and they might be considering other investors, the easiest thing we do is we just let them speak to our other entrepreneurs and CEOs, right? They're the best reference in general. And as far as I know, most of our entrepreneurs are very happy with us, because a big thing about what we do is we also try and help the companies in many ways. So just give a couple of examples on specific things. We have an in-house headhunter in our VC team, and we help the companies find key members of staff as they want to grow. And we also have an in-house PR person, so we help the companies with PR and media relations and things as well, because they don't have the resources internally. So, a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, are generally very happy with the kind of support we give to them as a team, right? But I think it's very much at the team and the project management level to kind of pull these resources together to do things. 'Cause part of the issue with being a big corporate is it's sometimes more difficult pulling the big resources, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
If you have a question, please raise your hand. Gentleman in the middle. Can we get a mic to him?
Hello, my name is Cohen. My company makes custom orthopedic devices for clinics in Hong Kong. And my question to all of you is in the last 6 months, have you invested in pre-revenue companies? And if so, why did you pull the trigger on those deals?
Can you repeat?
In the last 6 months, have your funds made investment in pre-revenue companies? And if so, what made you pull the trigger on those deals? Thank you.
We do sometimes do pre-revenue companies, right? And obviously, as you can imagine, at a pre-revenue stage, it's usually not a very large amount of money. But we have a fairly large portfolio, as I mentioned. We have about 50 or so companies in the last 3 years. So we are willing to take a bet on some early stage companies if we really think the entrepreneur and the idea is very impressive. And there's I suppose, a huge potential, at least, for this market or product. It's very hard to say at this stage, right? And I think, from the investor point of view, the success rate isn't very high. At this stage, but we will make certain investments. If again it's about the market, the product, the entrepreneur, really kind of smart, capable, really fired up, have a good product. These kind of things we can make that call. Yeah.
Yeah, for us, we haven't closed any investments so far, but we are soon to do so, and we'll make some public announcements pretty soon. But we do look at investments, pre-revenue investments as well, and the same factors or the same things will come into consideration, like the business proposition, the team, and the prospects that we think about the idea.
Do we have any more questions? Yeah, gentlemen.
Hi, my name is Rahul. Not an entrepreneur yet, but trying to be one maybe in a few years. Two small questions. You mentioned India twice, and you, I think, have invested in many Indian firms like Flipkart and Paytm. Alibaba has a major stake there. So how do you compare the startup scene in India with Hong Kong and China? That's my question one. And the second question is about, do you see a trend in startups growing up in the CSR domain? These two questions from me. Thank you. Two different questions here. So first question, how do you compare India startup scene with China and Hong Kong? Is it more aggressive in India or China or Hong Kong? And what is the strength in India, if you see? And the second question is about, do you see any startups in the CSR domain, CSR and sustainability?
I mean, we haven't done anything in India yet, so no comment on this one.
Well, we have not done much in India. I think Cindy is the best person to answer that question.
First of all, I would say Hong Kong will be pretty different from India and China, obviously, because we are, in the startup scene, we are still a bit lagging behind the two places. And the addressable market, as I said, is much smaller. So entrepreneurs should have to look outside of the local markets in order to scale up. Whereas in China or India, I think entrepreneurs will tend to really penetrate into the local markets, which is already very big. So this is one thing. And well, from the Indian side, I think it's more, I would say it's more very tech focused for now, although I see some new cases on the consumer side. Yeah, that's basically what I think. And for CSR projects, yes, I do see some CSR projects in Hong Kong, but again, the scale is relatively small and very localized in Hong Kong.
Well, I guess that's all the time we have for now, but please feel free to reach out to our panelists after the sessions. Thank you so much.